Hi, good morning, fifth grade. So, I've had some technical difficulties, as I said in your assignment thing, and there's been some issues. So, we're gonna try this again. What I'm gonna do is we're gonna go over the two assignments that you have read over the last couple days. So this one covers 156 to 158. We're gonna be looking at both fronts of the war, the eastern front of the Civil War and the western front, like we do. There's wars, there's battles, right, going on at the same time throughout the Civil War. But you can't like study them at exactly the same time because otherwise your brain would go. So what we're going to do is we break them down into the two fronts, the eastern front and the western front, and we break them down into battles. So we are going to be looking at this, okay? This one is going to be a long video because we go into Gettysburg. Gettysburg itself is long. But aren't you happy? There's no reading, there's no worksheets, there's nothing for you to do. But watch this video, study for your test. The study guides are attached, okay? So sorry. All right, so in the Eastern Front, we have another new Union general. His name is Ambrose Burnside. There he is. Abraham Lincoln has gone through a lot of generals that are over the Potomac, the Army of the Potomac, okay? This is his newest one. So the reason he keeps going through them is because none of them seem to be winning for him. So he's struggling with that, all right? So he brings on Ambrose Burnside, and Burnside is ready. He's ready to go after Lee. He's ready to defeat Lee's army, go into Richmond, and take over the capital. Because remember, that is the whole goal on the Eastern Front, is to take over the capital. The whole goal on the Western Front is to take over the Mississippi so that they can divide the Confederacy. And the reason they want to take over Richmond is because it is the capital of the Confederacy, and they feel if they take over Richmond that they will be able to defeat the Confederacy. So, Ambrose is going against Lee. Hang on, I gotta grab Lee. I took everybody down so we could start with a clean slate. So everybody's like behind you. Okay, there's Lee. Yes, you've seen him before. All right. So, the Union troops, they have 113,000 troops, and the Confederacy has 74,000. Remember, the Confederacy, the South started out with way less people, only 9 million people in the whole Confederacy. And the Union started out with way more people, 22 million people. Yes, they weren't all men. That included the women and the children, those populations. However, if you have 9 million people to choose from, there's a lot less men than if you have 22 million people, okay? All right, so in this battle, we have 113,000 going up against 74,000. This battle is called the Battle of Fredericksburg, okay? It occurs in 1862, and what happens is General Burnside, and he actually is very famous, that gets changed to sideburns. Did you notice his sideburns here? Okay, those are actually named after him. Before that, there weren't. It was interesting. All right, just a fun fact. Okay, so in 1862, Burnside goes to defeat Lee. But like all the other generals, and you'll continue to see this, he doesn't really fully commit, okay? So he takes only half his army to be committed to this battle, and the other half never really engage, okay? The Union suffered double the casualties as the Confederate troops do. So that means for every one person that the Confederacy lost, the Union lost 2. So the Confederacy lost 5, the Union lost 10. Okay, you just double it. All right, so Burnside takes his army and retreats, but he fails to really strengthen them. He really just kind of goes away and licks his wounds and tries to figure out what to do, but he doesn't really do anything for the men's morale. He doesn't do anything for the strategies. He just kind of goes off on his own with his army. And in January of 1863, because remember this is December, this is January, he decides he's going to try again. Yay, okay? So he has a lot of things against him, though. One of the big things being his men, his bad morale. So that means you don't feel really good about things, yeah? So there's kind of a lot of bad morale right now because of the COVID-19. People are quite upset and sitting in their houses, and they're getting sick and tired of the whole thing. And so what's happening is they have what's called bad morale. They feel sad inside. So that's an issue. Oh, we're never going to be able to defeat Lee. I mean, we keep trying. We got more men. It's never going to happen. That's kind of bad morale, kind of whining and stuff, yeah? They don't have any confidence. Oh, yeah, Burnside, they didn't even use half the army, okay? So that's what it means by a lack of confidence. But Burnside says, we're going to go, we're going to get them. He gets his men together, but not only does he have the issues with the men, he has the issues with the environment because now the roads are muddy, okay? It's winter, so there's been rain and or snow by this time, and the roads are muddy, and walking through mud is kind of like trying to run on the sand, kind of. Okay, it pulls you down. It doesn't really let you move very well. So his men get discouraged, okay? And what happens next is that they do not defeat Lee. And so Burnside decides to resign. So he goes to Lincoln and he says, hey, I can't do this job anymore. Lincoln says, okay, fine. And so he puts another man in charge. I'm sorry, I'm back here looking for him. Here he is. And that is Joseph Hooker. Okay? So Joseph Hooker now takes over the Union Army. Remember, it's nothing personal as the size. It's because I don't have a lot of paper. And then I found out Hannah was printing on paper the other day. So, yeah. All right. So, General Joseph Hooker, he gets the men excited. He raises their morale. They're like, yes, we can beat Lee. Yes, we can. And so he gets them all on his side. He gives them confidence that they can go into Richmond. They can take over the place. They can end this infernal war that, remember, started in April of 1861. And remember, quick, over by Christmas. Yeah. Now we're in January of 1863 and still not quick, over. Okay? All right. So in 1863, General Joseph Hooker brings his men into a place called Chancellorsville. Oh, is it? Chancellorsville. In 1863, the Battle of Chancellorsville begins. Okay? So the Union has still twice the amount of men as Lee does. This seems to be a thing that's always going to be through the Civil War, that Lee has way less people than they do. Kind of like the Revolutionary War. The colonists had a lot less people than the British did. Okay, and the British were they had lots of fighting forces and stuff. It's the same kind of idea here. So the Confederacy keeps winning even though they have less people. So in this battle, Lee does his tried and true tactic of splitting his army. Okay, you've seen this many times. You will continue to see it. At Gettysburg, it's actually not a good idea and ends up in bad situations. But here again, he splits his army, and as so often happens with the Union generals, Hooker hesitates. And that hesitation seems to be all that Lee needs to take over and to win the battle. Because as you see, Burnside hesitated. He only committed half his army. McClellan hesitated. Pope hesitated. All these guys do this little like hesitation. In football, it's called a shutter step. Okay, so you're like being defended and you kind of pretend to take your step forward, but you don't. You hesitate, and that works well for them. But in battle, the hesitation isn't working very well for the Union, but it's working great for the Confederacy. All right? Okay, so the Battle of Chancellorsville is won by General Lee, but it costs him greatly. So, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, unfortunately, during the Battle of Chancellorsville, he is coming back into his camp in the dark, in the night, and his men are nervous. And they hear this guy coming, they see the rider, and they shoot first and ask questions later. Unfortunately for General Jackson, the shooting first equals him being hit by a bullet from his guys. Okay? And he ends up dying a few days later. So even though Lee won the battle, he lost his greatest advisor and ally. Okay? And this is a problem for the next battle. All right? It's not a good thing. Okay. So again, we have another general, Hooker, who cannot beat the army. So what Lee decides to do is he decides to take the war to the north. Okay? But this next battle is a lot of really funny things that happen. Okay? And we're going to talk a lot about this next battle, which is called the Battle of Gettysburg, because Gettysburg is where it happens. So in June of 1863, Lee decides to march north into Pennsylvania. One big thing is he's looking for supplies. His army needs food. They need shoes, and there's actually a shoe factory in Gettysburg. So that's kind of where they're going. They're not expecting to meet the Union Army. They're not expecting to go to battle. It's not like Chancellorsville or Fredericksburg. They're not expecting it. They're just marching north, and they're on the hunt for supplies. In the meantime, guess what? Lincoln fires Hooker and replaces him with General Meade. I'm looking for General Meade. Give me a minute. I got a lot of people back here. All right. General Meade. There he is. General Meade is now in control of the Union Army. The Army of the Potomac is what it's often called. Okay? So General Meade takes command June 28, 1863 and goes to war a few days later on July 1st of 1863. Okay? He is tried very quickly on his ability to conduct a war and beat Lee. Okay? So on July 1st of 1863, the Union Army is marching south. The Confederate Army is marching north. Actually, the Union, it was really just their cavalry. They're scouting. And lo and behold, there the two armies see each other. This is often called the accidental war. Okay? Because neither side was looking for a battle. Neither side expected the other to be there. And so very quickly, the Union Army takes the high ground. Okay, high ground in a battle is really important. You can see what your enemy is doing. They have to come up to you so you can shoot down on them. And it's really a great tactical advantage, okay? During the Mexican-American War, the big thing that won it was Lee was able to get to the high ground that everybody said he couldn't get to, all right? So this occurs, this battle lasts for 3 days. It has a lot of like little battles in it. They're trying to capture different parts, and we're going to learn that and about a lot of the people, okay? This is the deadliest battle of the war. It is really, really bad. One, it lasts for 3 days. Two, so many people die and so many people get hurt. It's really quite a catastrophe. All right, so let's look at it. So what happens is Meade, I'm sorry. So we're gonna like recap it and then go into specifics. So Lee is defeated. Meade defeats Lee. Lee retreats on July 4th of 1863. He runs back to Virginia, and Meade does not chase him. Okay, Meade not chasing him is a mistake for Meade as far as Lincoln is concerned. And Meade does not hang on to this command for very long. Remember, he's dealt with a lot of other generals that hesitated and did not pursue. So, I don't know. I'm thinking he did a good job, but, you know, I wasn't there, and Lincoln has his own ideas. So, let's look at the Battle of Gettysburg. For this, I'm going to sit. Maybe. All right, so the Battle of Gettysburg. Remember, at the Battle of Gettysburg, there is no General Jackson because he has been killed the battle before, which was Chancellorsville. Okay, and so he is not there to help Lee, which really hinders the operation. All right, so we have one place. Like I said, this battle of Gettysburg had like a whole bunch of mini battles, and it lasted for 3 days. Okay, so they meet July 1st, they take the high ground, and what happens is General Ewell, okay, I think that's how you say his name, he is for the Union, and I'm sorry, he's for the Confederacy. I didn't think that sounded right. Okay, so Abraham Lincoln, I'm sorry. General Lee tells Ewell to attack the Union Army on a place called Cemetery Ridge. So the man in charge is Winfield Scott Hancock. Okay, this is not Winfield Scott, don't be confused. Winfield Scott Hancock is his name, okay? Hancock. So General Hancock is holding the high ground with his teeny tiny Union force, because remember, they weren't expecting a battle. So he is holding Cemetery Hill, and Lee has Ewell to attack. Ewell decides not to attack, and because he's worried because, you know, they have the high ground. And he's just a little bitty force because, again, they're waiting for the rest of the armies to arrive. The Union is waiting for the rest of the Union forces. The Confederacy is waiting for the rest of the Confederacy forces. Because remember, the Confederacy was on a scouting trip for supplies. The Union was just kind of scouting out what's happening. So nobody was ready. Finally, when the reinforcements arrive for the Union, they extend themselves out to the to a little hill. Well, not a hill, but kind of a hill. A big hill, not a little hill, big hill, called Little Round Top. Okay? And so that they consider the first day of battle, because there is some shelling back and forth, there is some shooting, but it's not a big battle necessarily, okay? But you know, there are casualties, obviously, but they're both kind of trying to get position. So on the second day, The Union line is like the line of troops. It is not really a straight line. It kind of curves around. Okay. So the Union line goes from Cemetery Hill to Culp's Hill to Cemetery Ridge. Okay. So on the second day, the Union is entrenched in the high ground. Lee orders Longstreet. There's our poor buddy Longstreet. He's been through the war. He looks like he has, hasn't he? His picture, I mean. Okay. Lee orders Longstreet to attack the left side, and he orders Ewell to attack the right side near Culp's Hill. Okay, Culp's Hill. And they're going to try to get around behind the Union Army, and it's called a flanking maneuver. So if you can get behind them, you can kind of sandwich them in between, because you have your Confederate forces coming up from the front to the Union Army. You have your Confederate forces coming from behind, and you're going to kind of squeeze that Union Army to defeat them. It's called a flanking maneuver. So that is kind of what Lee was trying to get Longstreet and Ewell to do. So Longstreet's going around one way, Ewell's going around the other. They are the idea, not what happened, but the idea is that they're going to break through the Union defenses, come from behind them, and then Lee can sandwich them between both of his forces. Does that make sense? Remember, he splits his forces a lot, and it's worked for him until this. All right, so what happens is Ewell attacks from the right, but he never gets near Culp's Hill. And the reason is, and so he never gets near Culp's Hill. And he never gets to Little Round Top. Now, the big reason he never gets to Little Round Top is because of the Maine Regiment, led by Joshua Chamberlain. Okay. He was a professor at a college in Maine. He is a Union. Okay. And he and his brother decided to join the Civil War. They were very much into ending slavery, and they felt that joining the Civil War would help that cause to bring an end to slavery. All right. And so with the Maine, I can never remember the regiment, sorry. He was able to attack after attack after attack, charge after charge after charge, hold back the Confederacy. Okay, they weren't able to get around Chamberlain's troops because Chamberlain just kept spreading them out and then bringing them back together. Chamberlain was really able to read what the Confederacy was trying to do and able to position his men to prevent them from flanking on his side. Okay, that second day was a huge toll on both of these troops, both sides. So the Union had 9,000 casualties, and the Confederacy had 9,000 casualties. But remember, the Union starts out with more people. Okay? All right. So that was just the second day. So to this point in the war, after 2 days of fighting, there's 35,000 casualties. All right? It's not looking good. Now we are on day 3. You thought the first 2 days were bad? Just wait. All right, so day 3, Lee is going to try something else. All right. So again, the Confederacy charges Culp's Hill. Again, the Union keeps Culp's Hill. Again, thanks to the Maine Regiment. Okay. Lee then sends 3 divisions to attack Cemetery Ridge. All right. So again, you're thinking of it like this. So like Culp's Hill, Little Round Top, Cemetery Ridge, Cemetery Hill. Okay. So it goes in kind of a semicircle. It's not as far as a semicircle, but that's what their line looks like. okay? And they're trying to get through the line, but remember they're on the high ground. So they're trying to go up, okay? So Culp's Hill is up, Little Round Top is up, Big Round Top is up, Cemetery Hill is up, Cemetery Ridge is up. So you can look down, you can see them coming from further away because you are on the high ground, all right? The Union has the best position. They just do. All right. So, Lee has a three-pronged attack. He divides them into three groups, his military. He's done it before. Yes, split army, split army, split army. So it's worked before. This time, not so much. So one group is led by George Pickett. Let me grab his picture. Oh, Pickett, where are you? There you are. Okay, there he is. General George Pickett, who, by the way, at the end of this is super angry and never serves with Lee again. Okay. All right, there is Pickett. Okay. He is supposed to lead his men over an open field, and this field is almost a mile long. Okay. And you have him going through the field with his men, and this is later known as Pickett's Charge, okay? 3/4 of the men are wounded or killed on Pickett's Charge because with being a totally open field, there's no place for the men to hide. That's one. 2, remember the Union has the high ground so they can see them coming from way far away. 3, there's a fence and a ditch. And that's important because the Confederate soldiers need to come through the fence and go through the ditch, which creates something called a bottleneck. So that's where a whole bunch of cars or people have to go down into a smaller area. It's called a bottleneck. I said cars because you're probably more familiar with it in a car term than in people. But whenever you have a whole group of people and they got to go down into like just doors, like you have a whole mass of people and they got to go down in these 2 doors, that area is called a bottleneck. And so the Confederacy had a bottleneck. Pickett's men had this bottleneck, and many of them fell there at the bottleneck. Okay, and the ones that did get through, again, now they have to cross an open field. That means like there's no trees. Yes, the Confederacy were kind of throwing some, artillery up there, but it was bad. It was really bad. Okay, while they were doing that, the other group was attacking Culp's Hill. They were attacking coming from the other sides like they were before. So this did not really work out for him. Okay. The Union wins at Gettysburg. So on July 4th, early in the morning, Lee sees that things have gone terribly wrong. And Lee apologizes to his men, tells his men it's his fault that they lost the war. He actually goes to Jefferson Davis. Goes to Jefferson Davis and tries to resign. Remember, Jefferson Davis is the president of the Confederacy at this time in history. Jefferson Davis says, absolutely not. You're not going anywhere, Lee. I refuse your resignation. Lee is devastated by this defeat. Absolutely devastated. So, the tally. The Confederacy lose 28,000 men. It's a third of Lee's army. And the Union lose 23,000 men. Okay? Gettysburg is considered a turning point in the war for several reasons. 1, Lee never ever again during the Civil War tries to invade the North. And there's still a year left. Okay? Almost a year left. because they surrender more than a year left, because they surrender in April of 1865. Okay, so these are the turning points. Okay, never again does Lee invade the North. Lee is defeated for the first time. Yeah, really defeated. He was defeated once before, but here Antietam, yeah, here he is defeated. I mean, heartily defeated. Gettysburg becomes a military cemetery. You've heard of the Gettysburg Address. So they take Gettysburg, and it's the first military cemetery in the country. And the president gives the speech, the Gettysburg Address, which is one of the most famous speeches ever. Little kids learn it. Yeah, Hannah's memorized, the fourth graders, when Hannah was a fourth grader, they memorized the Gettysburg Address. Asa memorized it just for fun. The Union believed they could win and save the Union. So finally, the Union Army is like, yes, we can do this. So their morale is very high. Lee's morale, the army, is very low. He's lost a third of his people. That is a huge blow. Okay? And like I said, Pickett is upset with him. Longstreet's upset with him because Longstreet said, hey, let's not do this. Let's go around the Union Army way out, and let's go attack the Capitol, all right? And then they'll have to chase us. But Lee didn't want to do that. Lee wanted to defeat the Union Army at Gettysburg. So it was a really tough thing for Lee. All right, so I'm going to pause you. So while all that is going on the Eastern Front, there's a lot of stuff happening on the Western Front too. So Vicksburg. So General Ulysses S. Grant, okay, decides to march on to Vicksburg. Vicksburg is on the Mississippi River. Vicksburg has guns that are aimed at the Mississippi River. Vicksburg can shoot at the boats carrying supplies up and down the Mississippi River. So it's very important for the Union to gain control of Vicksburg so that they are not a threat to the supply line of the Union. Remember, without supplies, an army dies. It's a little rhyme. Yes, without supplies, an army dies. That doesn't mean that they necessarily die, but if you get hungry, it happened, during the Revolutionary War, people will leave. So your army won't be there anymore. Without supplies, the army dies. All right? Okay, so Grant sees that Vicksburg is very fortified. He does not believe that he can take, does not believe that he can take Vicksburg just by a battle. So what Grant decides to do is he decides to lay siege to Vicksburg. Okay? So what he does is he surrounds Vicksburg so that nothing can get in. This is from Bible times. God told the children of Israel to surround certain cities, lay siege to them, and other countries laid siege to cities in Israel, okay? And it is a proven war tactic that happens. So what you do is you're basically starving the people out, all right? And that is what happened. So Grant progressed to Vicksburg through Tennessee, because remember there's a lot of battles in Tennessee. Remember we talked about Eastern Tennessee, how they were drafted into the military and they were fighting for sides they didn't want to be fighting for. All right. And so he marches his men, he surrounds the city, and the city, he surrounds it in May, okay? And then finally, on July 4th of 1863, both of these things happened at the exact same time. The Vicksburg surrenders, okay? The people in Vicksburg have had enough. So the starvation in Vicksburg was so bad that it became very dangerous to live in Vicksburg. So what people would do is they would actually dig into hills to make a cave to be able to defend themselves. So it wasn't the Union Army, yeah, it was the people in Vicksburg themselves. The people were starving. We have examples of this in the Bible. People are starving and what they will eat. So at this time in history, the people in Vicksburg were eating their dogs, their cats, horses, and rats to stay alive. Because remember, it started in May. So May, June, July. Don't have food for May and June and July. Well, they surrender early July, so they do. But they're going with 2 months without food. Now imagine if when the coronavirus hit, you had to go without food for 2 months. Okay? That was the problem. So, when Grant captured Vicksburg, he eliminated the problem of the guns on the Mississippi. So then the Union had control of the Mississippi. And with the surrender, Grant captured 30,000 men. That's how many Confederate soldiers were defending Vicksburg. This is why Lee did not feel he could just go in and attack Vicksburg. Okay? Chattanooga. Remember we talked about Chattanooga. We talked about how it was a hub for the railroad. So Chattanooga's next on the list. So this is our general. He is William Rosecrans, okay? So he goes in, he's the Union guy. He goes in to take over the city of Chattanooga so that they have another railroad hub that they can control the amount of supplies going in and out, all right? And what happens is General Rosecrans, he does a great job. He outfights and outmaneuvers the Confederacy led by Braggs. Oh, here he is. He's still on the table. There he is. Braggs. Okay. So this is General Braxton Braggs. He is on the Confederacy side. Okay. He loses the city of Chattanooga. But Braggs decides he is not going to go down easy. So he tricks Rosecrans to go into battle at another city called Chickamauga. Okay? So what happens is on September 9th, 1863, Rosecrans gains the city of Chattanooga, but then gets tricked into this other battle, and the Battle of Chickamauga, that's how you say it, that's how you say that. Chickamauga occurs. I've actually been to the battlefields of Chickamauga. Huge. They're miles and miles and miles. I've never thought about Union and Confederacy battlefields and how big they truly are. But they are miles and miles. It's crazy. Anyway, so in the Battle of Chickamauga, Rosecrans is getting sorely defeated by Bragg's army. Okay? So, he is losing the battle because he allowed that general to take his eye off of the focus, which was Chattanooga. Okay? So what has to happen is General George Thomas, okay, comes in and saves Rosecrans' army from complete and utter defeat. So they retreat back to Chattanooga. So Braggs decides, hey, let's siege Chattanooga and take it back from the Union, okay? So they siege Chattanooga, and things are going well until General Grant finds out about this issue. He brings his army to Chattanooga and defeats Braggs' army. And on November 1863, finally, the Union has complete control of Chattanooga. All right? So that is everything for today. I did tell you it was going to be long when we started. Most of it because of Gettysburg. Gettysburg is huge. There's a lot there. You could actually do like an entire study just on the Gettysburg War. There's actually movies just on the Battle of Gettysburg. Sorry, I said that wrong. The Gettysburg Battle. Because remember, all the battles make the war. Gettysburg was just like it had its own battles within its battles. Gettysburg was huge. Okay, and big turning point. It also made a big turning point for the people in the North because by this time in history, they're protesting the war. They're like, we don't want any more war. Just let the Confederacy go. Let's just be done with it. Okay? And so what happens is this gives the North excitement about, hey, we can win this thing. Even though it's going to be another like year and a half, they are now behind the effort. All right? So that is all for today. I realized I did not do my little code word where I wanted to, which was in the middle. So that's my code word, middle. Middle. All right.